Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video with the Star Wars Elite Series KYLO REN Unmasked. The Elite Series being them their die-cast action figures that you may have seen at your local Disney store where they're an exclusive. At a cost of $18.95 here in the UK and then €24.90 on the continent. This KYLO REN was 1/3 of a trio of newly released Elites after The Force Awakens came out. However, the only true new one was the Poe Dameron, with the Rey being the same as previously released except now packed with a lightsaber, and this KYLO REN coming with an unmasked head, of course. Now, the Elite series itself has been quite contentious with fans, as has the character of KYLO REN himself, so I'm sure in this video if I have anything positive to say I'll be told to shut my whore mouth in the comments below. But regardless, I'm weighing in on the KYLO REN debate, and I didn't realise how much I'd enjoyed the character until I got on the internet, saw people trashing him, and I felt this protective wave wash over me. In fact, when I bought this very action figure, the second I picked it up out of nowhere, a Disney store staff member wearing a Jedi robe rushed at me and couldn't wait to unleash his opinion that he felt KYLO REN never should have unmasked. I think with the months leading up to the release of the movie, seeing KYLO REN plastered all over all the merchandise, everybody projected onto him that he'd be the total evil badass. And frankly, some wouldn't have been happy unless he took that helmet off and it was revealed to be Darth Maul underneath. Well, instead we got a very much human character, and the fact that there are people who would prefer a flat blank slate in the fashion of get the girl, kill the baddie, as opposed to a conflicted and interesting character actually really disappoints me. As the saying says, the devil doesn't come wearing a red cape and pointy horns, and KYLO REN Unmasked is testament to that. That's the sentiment that led me to pick up this unmasked variant, but side by side like this with the regular KYLO REN Elite, and I'd have to say the regular version is certainly the definitive KYLO REN of the two. But then I imagine most people picking up the unmasked version are like me, doing it as a companion piece to the regular version, and it's not a matter of either or. Now, while I do defend the demystifying and humanizing that resulted from KYLO REN removing his helmet, however, this head sculpt is a lot harder to defend. I'll be honest and say that Adam Driver's face is hard for me to look upon because one eye is telling me he's quite the handsome fellow, and then the other eye is telling me he's the ugliest wretch I've ever seen, and caught between the two, my brain is having a stroke. And while I do somewhat see the actor's likeness in the head sculpt, I'm more seeing it as a caricature drawn by a not particularly talented street artist. And it's not just the head that is new here, as it does in fact receive a newly sculpted cape with a hood that's sculpted down. Fortunately, it does hide most of the ugly screw holes that have plagued this line, except that is for that single screw hole there on his left arm. Then we get the same great force gesturing sculpt of the left hand, and the same lightsabers. Yet a small but really important change that they have made between these two versions is in their right hands. As back when the regular version was first released, I made a comparison of it with Hasbro's Black Series Incarnation, and you may remember a big complaint I had was that the sculpt of his right hand led to the loosest grip of his lightsaber. Well, I'm pleased to say with the release of this unmasked version, they've taken the opportunity to sculpt a tighter gripped hand. And I will point out that even though these are die-cast action figures, they are not entirely die-cast metal. The hands here, for instance, are plastic, with the plasticity allowing the lightsaber to be wrestled into the grip. And there, with lightsaber in hand, he's ready to battle to the bitter end. Not that you can tell that from the facial expression, which says he's more likely to model clothing as a mannequin at Banana Republic. And speaking of lightsaber dueling, don't be expecting super fancy dynamic posing out of this Elite Series KYLO REN. For that, you might need to plump for Hasbro's Black Series one, but even though their single jointed elbows I find quite lacking. But regarding this figure's articulation, and at the shoulder the arms do rotate, they are inhibited somewhat from doing a full rotation by the angle of the shoulder surrounding them, and then the arms do also hinge up and down. Then just a single jointed elbow, then at the wrist there's no hinge and the hands just rotate. The head rotates and there is some very slight movement of the head down and up, but it's only very marginal. There is waist rotation. Then at the hips, his robes do inhibit the articulation somewhat, less so on the right side because of a longer cut, so the legs move further out on the right than they do on the left. Then they move this far forward. There's a single jointed knee. Then at the ankle it is hinged, moving backwards and forwards, and it rotates a lot stiffer than my regular version, which is to the benefit, as when I reviewed the regular version you can see here now that his ankles are quite weak, making him prone to falling, whereas this unmasked variant is much more sturdy. So a lot less in need of a display base, but as per the Elite series they all come with this Star Wars display base which has a single peg for the right foot. I guess if you collect all the Elite series then these display bases do lend a uniformity in displaying them. And speaking of people who collect them all, I do think ultimately this Kylo Ren Unmasked is one for the Star Wars completists. And while I certainly can't say the unmasked head sculpt is great, it is at this point the first and only one out of the gate. I'm not sure if Hasbro with their Black series have plans for one up their sleeve. And just in case you were wondering, the sheer size difference between the two lines doesn't really make possible a head swap unless you want your Black series Kylo Ren looking like a football mascot wearing a big goofy head. Anyway, click this video for more Star Wars in the form of Darth Vader, as both the Black Series and Elite Series versions go head to head in an action figure comparison, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.